So now I'm painting some little details again that I painted over. Some other distant trees. And I want to show that these trees on the right side are farther back than the trees that I just painted to the left on the hill. So it's almost two different planes there, so there's really like 5 planes in effect so far on this painting. I'm just taking a step back, assessing it, judging it, seeing what else I need to do. Just thinking about the next step. So here I judged that there should be some mist. Kind of like the same thing I did with the mountain should be done to this hill. More misty at the bottom. Create some distance, some depth. So I just took some white and I'm just scumbling it on, blending it into the green. Just using the paint as far as I can. Not a lot of pigment here, not a lot of paint. Scumbling it around, trying to make it as even as possible. Excuse me. So now that's like a very rough idea of what I want so far of this painting. So now I'm going to paint some larger trees on this hill. So I start off by just, I have a small bristle brush, or maybe a liner brush, not sure. Probably number 4 or number 6, some kind of flat, small bristle brush. I start off by creating a dark green line. I start at the top making small strokes from the left to the right, alternating, just getting wider and wider as I go down, with bigger and larger strokes, just resembling, a rough shape of a tree. It's kind of like some Alaskan scenery, so I'm using, those tall evergreen or fir trees, whatever kind of trees they are. That's the look I'm going for here. So I'm going to start painting in some larger trees, because now that the trees are getting closer to you, they need to be larger and they need to be more defined, more detailed, and darker in value. So that's all I'm doing here, just drawing a line of where I want these trees to be and then just throwing them in. As you notice here, each step of the painting is just taken one step at a time. And all these small elements, once you learn how to paint each element like this, you can easily put it all together in a big painting like this. Once you learn how to paint a mountain and paint a sky, paint some clouds, paint some trees, you can easily put all your knowledge together and have a completed painting. So, don't get overwhelmed with all the elements in a painting when you're learning how to paint. It'll come in time when you're learning how to paint each element. But eventually, it'll be no problem to just put all these together and have yourself a painting. Just take it one step at a time. So here, just adding more trees still. And they all kind of blend together at the base because they're all the same shade so far, but when we throw on the highlights, then, they'll stand out a little better and not blend together so much. And I'm making some of the background trees that I made earlier, just kind of standing some of them out a little bit, giving more details to some of them, which creates more depth. Okay, so now I'm using that same small brush that I just used on the trees, and I'm detailing in some snow on this mountain, giving more dimension and depth to the mountain. And the best way to do this is just think of where the light would hit on the mountain. And I'm using uh, some white, some burnt sienna, some yellow, uh, just a light mixture of snow, but not completely white, because white alone is just kind of a dead color. And this is an evening painting, so you want more of the snow to be kind of an orangish tone. So just think of where the snow would be. You know, use another reference photo if you have to for some snow. Just get some ideas. Each mountain is different. Some are completely snow covered. This one I wanted some areas to be snowy and some areas to be rocky. So that's what I'm doing here, and just painting on the snow. Just kind of detailing it. And at the end of the painting, I'll go back and put on the brightest highlights. But right now, I'm kind of just getting the structure of the mountain down. You know, it doesn't have to be too bright or anything. You know, more towards the end of the painting, you'll start realizing what's the focal point here, and you know, then you can add the details accordingly. But for now, just building a structure of the mountain, putting on some snow, leaving the dark color of the mountain, leaving that to be the shadow, most of the shadows, and some rocks. So just slowly build up the highlight colors here. I'm just kind of dabbing the paint on. You want to make interesting marks, you know, because that's what you become known for. That's how you create a style, just with the marks you make on the canvas, and the size and shape, and the kind of things that you do, create patterns, and you know, that's an artist's style. So keep that in mind. I'm just making some interesting marks, and just thinking of how snow would look on a mountain, and just trying to recreate that effect. You know, when you think of a mountain, there's lots of different crevices and uh, all kinds of things. There's different shapes and peaks and all kinds of things. So you want to recreate that, and not have such a flat, you know, you don't want a flat mountain. You want things to be sticking out, things to be bending around, and you know, all these things. So keep that in mind. And that's how you create depth, with different values, different colors, shades. So now you can see the mountain's coming out pretty nicely. And I just scumble toward the bottom to get more of a misty color, or a misty tone again, because I don't want to ruin that mist that I put on there earlier. So still just adding more snow. Variations of color, oranges, burnt sienna, mixed in with some white. Make sure you have some white mixed in there. You don't want, you know, straight burnt sienna or painted on there. All these are very light colors, light tones. So just putting in a lot of detail. You can see the painting's come a long way so far. Alright, so now, after stepping back and looking at it, I felt that there needed some more foreground trees, so that's what I'm going to add here. A few more of these. And be sure with your trees, you almost never want them to be pointing straight up and down. You don't want them to be parallel to the edges of the canvas. You want them to be either tilted a little bit to the left or tilted a little bit to the right. Go outside and study some trees. Very rarely are they straight up and down. They have these bends and twists and all kinds of things like tilts and leans to them. So keep that in mind, and that makes an interesting painting. If they're just straight up and down, it can get kind of boring and stagnant. And you don't want boring and stagnant for your painting, that's for sure. So definitely keep that in mind. So you can see there, that one's pointed a little more to the left. Make them different heights and sizes. And there's a lot of variation in nature. And the different sizes creates depth as well.